There are a number of issues that are posed by the changes, particularly to the tuition fee regime, and of course the abolition of the educational maintenance allowance, which in some ways was a bigger issue for black young people than the tuition fees, because for very many of our young people, the EMA was their route forward in education. So there's issues about being priced out, there's issues about our young people accessing the top institutions. But without further ado, I want to call on our first speaker, who's a very dynamic young black leader and as an NUS officer, knows all about this on the front line. I give you Aaron Kiely, the NUS Black Students Officer.
Thank you very much, Diane. As Diane said, my name is Aaron Kiely. I'm the National Black Students Officer for the National Union of Students, and I'm elected to represent over 1 million students of African, Arab, Asian and Caribbean heritage in colleges, sixth forms and universities across Britain. I'd first of all like to thank the organisers of this conference for kindly inviting me and hosting today's event on an issue that is so important to all of us and our communities. Because let's be clear, I believe that the education system is failing. The government does not care about young people, and this government certainly does not care about black people. And if you're young and black, then you're in trouble. We're in Britain's worst economic crisis for over 70 years, which has already brought brutal consequences for young people, with over 1 million of Britain's youth unemployed. The prospect for the 1 million black students that I represent on their graduation day are even worse, with them less likely to find employment, and new reports showing that nearly 50% of young black people in this country are currently unemployed. Since this government came to power in 2010, a serious campaign to attack the most vulnerable in society has been launched. The decision to triple tuition fees and the introduction of commercial interest rates on student loans has disproportionately affected black students. Already, 75% of all black communities live in the 88 poorest areas in Britain. And as tuition fees have tripled from £3,000 a year to now £9,000, we're now seeing the average student leave education with around £55,000 worth of debt, which is just absolutely incredible. And when it comes to paying off this money, lower pay and institutional racism in the workplace combine and mean black students are burdened with paying student debt for far longer than white counterparts. And that's if you're lucky enough to get a job in this climate, because black graduates are 4 times more likely to be unemployed than white counterparts. And it just makes me think, does this government not want doctors, nurses, lawyers, entrepreneurs, journalists, teachers, IT experts, the very people that are going to get us out of this economic crisis? Knowing all of this, just quite frankly, I have to say shame on a government which is made up of millionaires who got free education themselves yet deny it to my generation. It's disgusting. So we all know the value of education and always encourage our young people in our communities to aim higher. Well, the government had a scheme that supported young people doing just that, getting them into college and university. It even had a good name too, Aim Higher. But this government clearly had a different view, so they abolished it. And I can't actually work out why, given that only a few years ago, figures showed that 21 Oxford and Cambridge University colleges took not a single black student. The stigma of Oxbridge and Russell Group universities as culturally exclusive, coupled with fear of huge living costs and fees, and the inadequate welfare support once there, are a potent mix that prevent many black students from considering these leading institutions. You'll probably know that last year the government tried to deport over 2,000 black students at London Met, and I'm pleased to be able to tell you obviously we managed to stop that in the end thanks to a lot of hard work campaigning by black people and support from people like Diane. You may also know that because of huge government funding cuts, London Met has scrapped 70% of all of its degree courses, as well as its unique Caribbean Studies course, which is the only place in the whole of the country that you can actually study that, and now it's gone. But, I don't know, what is it about this university, situated in one of the most deprived areas in London, that has made it such a target of this government? Well, I'll let you in on something that you might not know. There are more black students studying in London Met University than there are in the entire top 20 elite universities combined in the country. I think that alone makes it very, very clear that the attacks on education that we're seeing are direct attacks on black communities. And now one of the biggest attacks that we have witnessed is the abolition of the Education Maintenance Allowance, the EMA, which was an absolutely vital lifeline for the majority of black students. And as we all know, child poverty rates amongst black people is higher, and EMA provided an essential additional income. Research into the impact of EMA on participation, retention and attainment has consistently shown the strongest effect is on black learners. And the EMA take-up, just so you're aware, in 2008 was 88% of all students of Bangladeshi heritage, 77% of all students of Pakistani heritage, 67% of students of African heritage, 64% of African Caribbean heritage, compared to 39% of white counterparts. This is had a massive disproportionate impact on black people. And on a personal level, that money was absolutely vital to me. I remember thinking about going to college and having to have a crisis meeting with the whole of my family, thinking about how do you pay for the travel, how do you pay for the cost of books, how do you pay for that school trip that you know you're going to invite to on the first term, you just can't do it. And thankfully, I was one of the first people that was actually able to receive EMA, and that was a massive help to me and managed to allow me to be the first person in my family to actually complete college and go on to university. But in my family, the contrast is very, very stark. My sister in her first year received EMA, and in her second year lost it, and she was struggling to cope and thought about dropping out many, many times, and this is reality for so many young people at the moment. And the reality is as well, when people are left with no choice, no support like the EMA, what do we expect them to do? NUS conducted a bit of research that says that 1/5 of the poorest learners rely on commercial borrowing, such as companies like Wonga, which are charging massive amounts of money to help make up the difference. We all know about this. And what do you think will happen now to young black people now that EMA has been abolished? Well, in too many cases, staying on in education is not an option for young black people, and that is a failure of the system. And even if we can make it through to colleges, now with next to no financial support, we know from our students that massive inequality still exists in universities. There is a 30% gap between black students receiving a higher class degree compared to white students. The diversity in teaching is also shocking. Out of all the 14,385 professors, how many are black? 50, you know the statistic. Which, I just think that it's absolutely shocking. 0.4% of all professors are black in this country. It's a disgrace. And obviously no one can tell me that it's our fault. We can't be blaming the victims at this time. Let's address the real inequalities that exist within the system. We also know as well that worryingly, at least 1 in 5 black students will be a victim of a racist hate crime during their time of study. And we know that this is only going to get worse. Against the backdrop of seemingly never-ending recession, there has also been a significant rise in the scapegoating of black communities, immigrants and asylum seekers. By blaming black people for the economic crisis, the Tories are attempting to construct a smokescreen to distract people from the real cause of the crisis and to divide Britain. This whipping up of racism, whether by the EDL, BNP on the issue of Woolwich or attacks on immigration by the Tories and UKIP, it's all a distraction from the real failures of government economic policy. And it's all creating an increasingly more difficult environment for black students to learn in and succeed in. So to conclude, what should be done? Well, the government clearly needs to restore the education maintenance allowance. The government needs to start investing money in education because young people are the future, as cheesy as it is. In Germany, they've just announced they are abolishing tuition fees. We should follow their lead here in Britain. We need to work to eliminate racism in education that holds back black students. There are already excellent projects that are happening across colleges and universities, at University of the Arts, at Bradford University, Basingstoke College, that are bringing people together to really challenge the inequality that does exist. And most importantly, it's up to all of us, every single one in this room, to continue to meet, discuss and keep on raising these issues, like at conferences like London Schools and Black Child. And obviously, some of these statistics and things that I've talked about are very uncomfortable truths. Government ministers, council officials, politicians will certainly not really want to hear what we've got to say. But there is a proud tradition in our communities of speaking truth to power. And for the sake of black students, we need to do that now more than ever if we want future generations to succeed. Thank you.